Andrew, the CEO of Kirkland, Mr. Smith, called my name. He furrowed his brow and stared intently at my face. Andrew Nichols, he repeated my name loudly. Cold sweat trickled down my back. Everyone in the department was looking at me with puzzled expressions. I hurriedly tried to stop Mr. Smith from speaking further, but he blurted out, "You don't know." He is. Revealing my identity. However, the surprising turn of events continued. My beautiful colleague, Michelle, let out a small gasp. "No way. My name is Andrew Nichols, 43 years old. I work part-time at a major design company. There are times in life when things just don't go well. I'm in such a phase right now. If I were to compare it to surfing, it's like waiting endlessly for a good wave that never comes, just floating around. I hope I can ride a great wave someday." "Hey, Andrew." I was spacing out a bit when my manager, Kelvin, called out to me. "Yes, what is it?" When I looked up, Kelvin said without even looking at me, "I've put the design data in the shared folder. Print it out and check the contents." Nodding at the order from Kelvin, who was 6 years younger than me, I proceeded to print it out. As I heard the sound of the paper being ejected from the printer and was about to stand up, I heard a woman's voice. "Andrew, since I'm going that way, I'll take it." Looking towards the printer, I saw Michelle smiling beside it. Kelvin clicked his tongue quietly and looked at Michelle. "Michelle, you should let Andrew handle the chores." His voice was not sharp and rough as it was with me, but rather a sweet, coaxing tone. Kelvin's likes and dislikes are clearly evident in his tone of voice. Michelle furrowed her eyebrows slightly. "I just finished printing my stuff too." She replied briefly and started walking towards me. With her beautiful, medium-length black hair, she is a stunning beauty. Petite and slim, her figure is fantastic. It's no wonder Kelvin can't help but be enamored. "Here, this is Kelvin's design. Please check it. And, could you also take a look at mine?" I took the 2 sheets of paper and placed Kelvin's on his desk. "The colors and overall layout, what do you think?" I'm stuck but can't pinpoint exactly what it is. I scrutinized the design. It was clean and had a warm feel. Her designs are always so sophisticated, and I learn a lot from them. "What did your client request?" Just as I asked that, Kelvin interrupted. "Michelle, you don't need to ask an old part-timer, I can check it for you." Indeed, in this situation, it would be more appropriate to have the boss review it. However, Michelle said, "I'd like to hear various opinions. I'd like you to do the final check, so please give me a little more time." And bowed politely. "Is that so? Final check? Okay, then. It's better not to look at it now." "Got it," Kelvin nodded, seemingly satisfied. Michelle is adept at handling Kelvin. She chooses her words carefully and always responds with a soft smile. Her words and actions are devoid of any thorns and captivate everyone, regardless of gender. She bowed to Kelvin once more and then turned back to me. My client wants something approachable and friendly. With that in mind, I took another look at the design. In that case, the logo and the title part could be a bit rounder and softer in font. Also, the color scheme could be a tone brighter. And this part would stand out if you added a bold blue or a darker shade. Michelle let out a soft sigh, and I snapped back to reality. I seem to have talked too much. Indeed. Andrew, you're amazing. Thank you. I bowed my head repeatedly in response. No. I'm sorry, I'm just an amateur. As I said that, Michelle looked at me thoughtfully. An amateur. Her large almond-shaped eyes pierced through me. I was flustered and quickly tried to explain. Well, I just like looking at designs. That's why I ended up here as a part-timer. Why did I join the company as a part-timer at this age? People have asked me that countless times. Each time, I explained that I've always loved looking at flyers and posters. Michelle sighed, seemingly giving up. Your eye for detail is impressive. I'd love to see a flyer you've designed someday, she said with a smile before returning to her desk. Although she mentioned wanting to hear various opinions from some staff, Michelle got straight to work. Feeling a bit puzzled, I started checking Kelvin's flyer. I sighed. As usual, there were many typos. The design was sophisticated, intellectual, and excellent. It perfectly matched the client's expectations. However, it seemed Kelvin wasn't too interested in the content, leading to numerous mistakes in the text. I called out to Kelvin. There are some errors in the content again." Before I could finish speaking, Kelvin interrupted. "Just fix it as you see fit." I nodded slightly and began correcting the data. A few days later, when I arrived at work in the morning, the department was buzzing with excitement. As I tilted my head in confusion, Michelle rushed over. Her cheeks were unusually flushed, and her eyes were sparkling with excitement. "Mr. Smith, the CEO of Kirkland, from the UK headquarters, is coming for a visit next month." "I see, that certainly is a big deal." Kelvin was visibly excited. Everyone in the department was abuzz with the possibility of Mr. Smith seeing their flyers. Kelvin was talking about posting all the flyers we had made on a whiteboard. It had nothing to do with me. I just quietly continued my usual tasks. However, I made sure to clean every nook and cranny thoroughly. I wanted to avoid any non-work-related criticisms. Though the visit was said to be a month away, I immediately started cleaning the break room. And a month later, Mr. Smith arrived at our US branch. Apparently, he was going to inspect each floor in order. Everyone was nervously working that day. Michelle was trying to maintain a calm demeanor, but it was clear she was excited, which was a little endearing. A few hours later, Mr. Smith finally appeared in our department. Our department manager, Kyle, and Kelvin welcomed him with stiff smiles. While I was preparing the tea in the break room, which was likely being served on other floors as well, Mr. Smith greeted everyone with a smile, causing a stir. Glancing around the department, I saw him attaching a large poster to the whiteboard. The whiteboard mainly displayed several of Kelvin's meticulously designed flyers, but most of them ended up hidden behind the large poster. I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. Mr. Smith seemed to be questioning what was wrong with the poster. The department was abuzz, and murmured discussions began, but few people spoke up clearly. Among them, Kelvin said, "Is it the color scheme? Perhaps a brighter palette?" It was impressive that he could speak up in this atmosphere. However, the answer was no. Mr. Smith was becoming increasingly displeased. He furrowed his brows, seemingly wondering why no one could figure out something so simple. I quickly wrote a note while serving tea, and handed it to Michelle. As Mr. Smith stared intently at everyone, I discreetly placed the tea on the table. Without looking at me, he gulped down the tea. I was relieved that I had made the tea slightly lukewarm. Everyone was shrinking under his demeanor when suddenly, "Yes." Michelle timidly raised her hand. Mr. Smith fixed his gaze on Michelle. "That design, it resembles the one released by S Company in 2021. Mr. Smith's face lit up, and he was about to say something when Michelle added. As Andrew pointed out in his note, Michelle said, showing the note I had written, causing everyone to gasp in surprise. I furrowed my brow. I really shouldn't take credit for this myself. Michelle looked at me and stuck out her tongue playfully. Mr. Smith looked around and, realizing that it was I who had just served the tea, grabbed my hand and repeatedly said, "Great." This was a test, after all. It was about whether those handling designs were properly checking other companies' works. For someone like me, it was a famous flyer since I love looking at various posters and flyers. But it seemed difficult for everyone else. Mr. Smith shook my hands vigorously, making me dizzy. And suddenly, "Andrew," he said my name. He furrowed his brow and stared intently at my face. "Andrew Nichols," he repeated my name loudly. Cold sweat trickled down my back. Everyone in the department was looking at me with puzzled expressions. I hurriedly tried to stop Mr. Smith from speaking further, but he blurted out excitedly, "Don't you know? He's the famous painter Andrew Nichols. I can't believe we met here. I have loved drawing since I was a child. My passion led me to attend a high school specializing in art, then to an art college in New York, where I spent every day painting. Initially, I excelled in landscape painting, but as I studied more, I became interested in abstract art. In particular, the style of self-expressive abstraction, which involves conveying one's inner self through creative activity, deeply moved me in my youth. After graduating from college, I went to the UK alone. The UK is a famous place for action painting. Action painting involves splashing or dripping paint onto a canvas to create a piece.